Hey there, how there, ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome to another Stone Cold Hockey video about the 78-79 NHL season. And I'm doing Boston as a way to get Don Cherry the proverbial bag, if you will, trying to win a cup before Harry Sandin basically fires his ass. We are in a dialogue fight with the Buffalo Sabres for tops in the Adams division. We're only 1 point separate. We have more wins, they have more ties, but we're lucky right now. Right now, Minnesota and Toronto are also fighting for third place. Toronto is a win behind those pesky North Stars. It'd be weird if Toronto doesn't get to the playoffs. In the North Division, Montreal's got it beaten. Pittsburgh, LA, and Washington are fighting for second, third, and fourth because it's huge. Because second place, well, yeah, second and third would get in the playoffs. Washington would miss the playoffs by 2 points, whereas Minnesota would make the playoffs. In the Smythe, in the wacky and weird division, the Blackhawks are going to win the division. Vancouver's got second place. St. Louis has got third. Colorado is basically out. Islanders, Rangers are battling tooth and nail. The Islanders have a lot of wins, but the Rangers have a lot of ties. Philly's crushing Atlanta right now. So it looks good. And Mike Bossy has put up goals like there's no tomorrow. He's now at 63 goals. He's number one in the NHL. Marcel Dion, 57 for second. Guy Chouinard, who was first for the longest time, is third with 55. Guy Lafleur is trying to get to 50. I think he's the only other guy who can get to 50. I don't think McNabb, Greg Malone, Trotz, Brian Sutter, or even Kitcheners, Ron Siddlebauer can get to 50 goals. But yeah, we might have 4 or 50 goal scorers. Points wise, right now, Trotz looks like he'll win the Art Ross Trophy. Dion second, Bossy third, Lafleur fourth. McNabb's all the way down in 10th place. McMillan, Gillies, Potvin, Chouinard, and Hedberg all have reasonable chances to get to 100 points. Goes against Ken Drennan, number 1, Billy Smith, number 2, John Davidson, number 3. So that's going to be huge. All that. Gary Cheevers, 14th, and goes against. Weird, he doesn't have a shutout, whereas people like Phil Meyer has a shutout. Paul Harrison has 2. Why the hell can't he get a shutout? Nevertheless, we have the standings. It is an 80-game regular season. Everyone's played 76 or 77 games, except for Vancouver, who played 78. So, yeah, they only have 2 games left. A lot of teams have 4 left, and a lot of teams have 3 left. Now, I know we do the 3-game rule for Boston and all that. And I see from our point thing, our schedule is that we actually we actually have a 6-game unbeaten streak, 3 wins, 3 ties. We play Toronto twice, Montreal once, and Buffalo once. So we're going to be playing the Montreal, Toronto. We're going to be playing Montreal, and then we're going to wait to Buffalo because Buffalo, that might be a critical game. We're going to skip the Toronto game. We're going to play the 80th game against Toronto. We might just go with our backup goalies and all that. Highlights, all that many hat tricks. There have been 48 hat tricks. Mike Bossy has scored a 4-goal game. Mike Bossy put up 5 goals against the North Stars. Jeez. Sean Martella had a 4. Robert Picard had a hat trick even though they lost 7-4. So anyway, the biggest game right now, Detroit Atlanta, January 28th by game score, is when the Flames were up 6-3 and it looked good, but Detroit scored 4 goals in a 10-minute period to win the game. St. Louis beat Minnesota 7-6 on November 1st, doing his job. And then St. Louis, Minnesota, January 3rd, when they battled each other. Arnold mentions Atlanta, Detroit, and Washington, Detroit, Minnesota, Washington on their St. Louis. We haven't got our best game scores, 28 points against Colorado. We were down 3-0, won that game with 6 straight goals. So as we look at the schedule, we got to play Montreal on home ice. They have the octopus, Ken Drennan in the net against Jerry Cheevers. Montreal doesn't have anything to play for, but they only have 2 goalies, so they don't really have a third-string goalie like we do with Petty. Boston, we've got some players. Have to take care of a little bit of business first before I get too far into my thing and all that. So as for us, we have Cheevers, Gilbert, and Jim Petty. Our main players, Rick Middleton, he's a pretty good player for the Bruins. The guy we fleeced the Rangers for, Ken Hodge Sr., Peter McNabb, who's been top 10 in points and goals in the universe. Great color commentator, died of cancer, unfortunately. John the Animal Wenzik, Alba and Sean Rattel, who we also fleeced from the Rangers. Wayne Cashman, who in real life scored twice against the Habs in the semifinals. But, of course, Boston lost that game 7 in overtime. Terry O'Reilly, Taz as we call him, Donnie Marcotte, Bob Schultz, Al Secord before he went to the Bruins, the Hawks. Bob Miller, who looks like Screech from Saved by the Bell if you've seen my other videos. Dwight Foster, Kitchener. Al Simmons, Brad Park, another Ranger reject, if you will. Dick Redmond, Rick Smith, Gary Doak, Stan Donovan, the guy who was the scapegoat for that too many men penalty. Tom Sunyon, Dennis O'Brien, Mike Milbury a year before his shoe stuff, and Bill Bennett. Montreal, they have a great team with Dryden, LaRock, and that. Guy Lafleur, the Demon Blonde, the guy who scored the tying goal in Game 7 against the Bruins in the semis. Stevie Shutt, who was a high-scoring left winger who had a lot of left-wing records before Robitaille and Ovi broke him. Pierre Mondu, these are by Murray Tremblay. Hate that guy with a passion. You can guess why I'm a Patrick Roy fan. That should tell you everything. Yvan Lambert, who scored that winning goal against Boston, and Gilles Chabert, and then basically said, for 24 hours, I was more famous than Guy Lafleur. Jacques Lemaire, who later gone to coach the Devils to a pair of Stanley Cups using his trap. Actually, no, not a pair, just one. Bob Gainey, who was a great defensive forward. Even the Russian coaches were blushing over him. Rajon Peanut Cool, who became GM of the Habs. Larry Robinson, Kitchener, part of the Big Three, alongside Guy Pointu-Lapointe. And Sir Savard, who's low on the list. Well, they do it by scoring. Mark Napier, Doug Riseborough. Yeah, you see players who can't make any moves. So that's okay. Yeah. Mark Napier, Doug Riseborough, Kitchener. Doug Jarvis, who was the Ironman before Phil Kessel. Pierre Larouche, who was a 50-goal scorer for the Penguins, but then went to Montreal. He was a 50-goal scorer there, but immaturity ruined him. Pat Hughes, Serge Savard, the senator, the other part of the Big Three with Robinson and Pointu. Rick Chartrand, Kitchener, and he's from Venezuela too. Born in Venezuela. Brian Engblom, Rod Langway, who was born in Taiwan to American servicemen. And Langway became the top American defenseman in a sense in the 1980s. And Langway would win 2 Norris trophies for Defenseman of the Year after he was traded to Washington. Yvon Cournoyer, this was his swan season. Gilles Lupien and Cam Connor and Dan Newman. Here we go. 3 minutes into the game. One real skill is Pointu. His 7th from Savard and Lafleur makes it 1-0. A few minutes later, we have a chance. Oh, stop my training. 4 minutes later, Pointu. 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hits. Then 5 minutes later, Agitator. A chance for Peter McNabb. Fuck. 3 more minutes. They score. He shuts the door. Shuts 27 for Lafleur and Jarvis. Guy Lafleur. Boston can't score. We're down 2-0 to Montreal after 20 minutes. Five minutes into the second. Boston! 4 more minutes. Nope. 3 minutes. Battle. Montreal takes a penalty. It's .2. Foster, damn it. And they kill it on Park. Damn it. That damn octopus. They score Savard from Lafleur. Guy Lafleur is torching us for 3 assists. It's like, what the hell are they smoking? There's a fight. Shutt and O'Reilly. What? Steve Shutt decides to pick up a glove? Home player runs a quick hard shot. A brief brawl. Whoa, Steve Shutt. He's not much of a fighter. Taz puts him down. Oh, man. And Peter McNabb thought he could score. But he doesn't. It's 3-0 after 40 minutes. It looks bad for us. And another penalty. It's the Animal Wenzik. And that'll do it. Peanut his 20th from Lafleur and Cournoyer. Man, Lafleur's killing us. He's trying to prove that we're nothing but just pylons. Dryden, well, East Kenny fucking Dryden. Going forward, the animal runs it 28 from Mill to 41. Consolation. And point two scores again. LaFleur gets another assist, 69. Nice if you're a Montreal fan. Not so nice if you're a Bruins fan. And we got our asses handed to us. 5-1 by Montreal. Yeah, we had nothing. No answer. LaFleur had 5 assists. He didn't need to score goals. He just needed to score. He didn't need goals. He needed assists. One step was the only one. LaFleur now is third in points. He's close to Marcel Dion. So by standings, we both teams have 77. So we both us and Buffalo have 3 games left. LA Rangers kind of helps in the division. The Rangers beat the Kings. Minnesota beat Chicago. That'll help. Islanders beat Florida. Pittsburgh beat St. Louis. Vancouver crushes Colorado. And LA Washington ties. Buffalo doesn't play tonight. Chicago, Minnesota tie. Montreal beats Detroit. And Atlanta beats the Rangers. So we play Toronto. And I believe we could screw them over, right? Well, if Toronto wins, they're only 3 points back of Minnesota. Well, if we beat Toronto, that's it. Toronto can't catch. We have 2 games left. They can't catch Minnesota. So we can help the North Stars out and knock out the Leafs. Yeah, in our division. Of course, Buffalo will play the next night, but we win. We're definitely first place because Buffalo, all they can do is tie it, cut back to 1 point. All right, so we're in Toronto. And it will be Jim Petty and Paul Harrison going toe-to-toe. No Popcorn Kid, no Cheevers. So, yeah, we figure we might as well go with Petty against Toronto because Toronto's falling behind and we can screw the Leafs over. Kind of weird me being a Leaf fan and then basically saying, that's screw the Leafs over. The Popcorn Kid Palmer not in the net near Pierre Hamel. Toronto's players, Lanny McDonald, who would this will be his last full season in Toronto. He was the hero in 78 against the Islanders in the quarterfinals, but he would only last half a year the next year before Punch and Black deciding to fuck over Sittler by trading Lanny to Colorado. Of course, Daryl Sittler would be there. A lot of people say Punch and Black was just stupid. Well, he hated Alan Eagleson because he was a players only type of agent and all that, part of the NHLPA. Well, of course, he had that stupid underbelly of scamming money from people. Walt McKegney, I think he went to Colorado too. I can't remember. Well, anyway, Tiger Williams, who went to Vancouver for Rec 5, that deal actually worked out, even though Tiger Williams was famous in Toronto. Roy Salmi, a great defenseman who was signed only because Mr. Ballard was in prison, so he couldn't do anything about it. Dan Maloney around. Ron Ellis, number 6 in your programs. Final season for him. Johnny Anderson. John Anderson there. Pat Boutet. Really going to Hartford. Ian Turnbull, 5 goals in 1 game, and then he starts slowing down. Jimmy Jones. We're named Jerry Butler, who also went to Vancouver. Paul Gardner. Ron Wilson, not the Ron Wilson of the coach Friday. Dave Hutchinson, Davidson defenseman. Jerry Monahan. Bruce Boudreau. Yes, he was that head coach. Lawrence Stamler, right? Rocky Sankochuk. Dave Burrows. Joe Quenneville. Yes, that Joe Quenneville. And Trevor Johansson. 5 minutes into the game, aggression. Boston. Tiger for 2. And we score. Power play goal. Break out the cash as Cashman's 29 from Rattalin Millbury. 1-0. Much later. Let's go. Oh, E-I-E-I-O. From Jimmy Jones and Tiger Williams. 3 minutes later. Ron Ellis from Anderson and Sittler. Minus 4 minutes over. Help the Buffalo saving up. The Leafs need this win to keep their playoff hopes alive. We need to do something. 2 minutes later. Let's go. Play Diamond from Sittler and Jimmy Jones. Not. We should be desperate. 5 minutes later. We score. Marcotte has 17 from Sims and McNabb. No way Marcotte's going to get to 20 goals. 4 minutes later. Nope. Much later. Damn it. Playoffs, but will it be as a bye in the quarterfinals, or are we going to have to go to the prelims? We're down 4-2. Play like that, and we're going to the prelims. Yeah, play like that. We are going to the prelims 1 minute later, but we score. The Doak no show get Doak his 7 from Bob Miller and Cashman 3-4. 2 minutes later. We must. We need this. He's rattled, damn it. But we have a chance. Safe. Lanny, no. 2 more minutes. We score. Tom Song in Cheek, his 5th from Cashman and Miller, 5-4. This is going to be close. Chance for the tie. Well, no. Now we need the empty nets. Gentlemen, Jean Rattel with 14 seconds left ties the game, and a massive comeback for us. We come back and steal 2 points from Toronto. We only give them 1 point. A big win, in a sense, for us. A tie means we're 2 ahead of Buffalo with the game. They had the game in hand, but we did it. Toronto thought they got us, but we scored 3 in the third. Doak, Sung, and Rattel saved the day, in a sense. Cheevers will get credit for the tie. So, what does that mean for the standings? Well, the Islanders are still ahead of 2 points by the Rangers. They do have the game in hand. Philly's squandering third. Well, remember, points do matter in the prelims because it determines who you face. Chicago's going to win the Smythe. Vancouver's going to be second. St. Louis will be third. For us, we're 2 points up on Buffalo, but they do have the game in hand. But we do have more wins than them. In case of a tie, wins is the tiebreaker. We have that in spades. Toronto now will have to win twice, and Minnesota will have to lose both times. Note, Toronto needs to win both their final games, and Minnesota cannot. Minnesota just needs a point because now we kind of helped the North Stars. We do play the Leafs in the final game of the season, if that means anything. I know we have to play Buffalo. One of Buffalo's 3 games left is us. And right now, it looks very good for Pittsburgh to take second place ahead of LA. LA is only 2 points ahead of Washington. Washington has a lot of wins. Pittsburgh has a lot of ties. I mean, LA and Washington. Man, Washington has more wins, but LA would get in on ties. But it's going to be a dogfight. Thursday, Buffalo. Oh, we do play Buffalo. So Buffalo's game in hand will be on, I think, on Saturday. Yeah, they got to play 3 games in 4 days. They have to go to Toronto and then host Colorado. So they do play on the final day. We don't. So Buffalo's next game is against us. LA ties Colorado, and the Islanders beat the Flyers. What does that mean? Well, it means the Islanders have won the Patrick division and we'll get the quarterfinal bye. Them, Chicago, and Montreal are in the quarterfinals. Rangers can tie, but the Rangers only would have 47 wins. The Islanders have 50. So the Islanders beat them on wins. So basically, the Islanders and Rangers, the Islanders know they're going to the quarterfinals automatically. Chicago knows that way too, so they don't have to do anything stupid. And Montreal as well. So with LA's tie, Washington still has a scant chance, but LA's tie might help them. So now we got to play Buffalo, and we are going to use Gilbert in the net against Don Edwards. Kitchener! So Buffalo goes with their best guy, Don Edwards from the Kitchener Rangers, the best Kitchener Ranger goalie to be in the NHL till Steve Mason came along. Bob Sauvé and Randy Arland, your backups. Rick Martin, Gilbert Perreault, Rene Robert, the French connection line was still around in 79. Danny Gear, the guy who scored like 18 seconds into his first NHL shift. Don Luce, Kitchener. Craig Ramsey, Rick Sealing, Kitchener. So 3 Kitchener Rangers on this team. Andre Savard, Derek Smith, Jerry King Kong Korab, Jacques Richard, who was this big boy for Atlanta. They drafted him high, but unfortunately he just couldn't handle the NHL culture and basically was a flop in Atlanta. Jim Schoenfeld, have another donut. Have another donut. Tony McKegney, trying to give room for African American hockey players to do well. Terry Martin, Rick Dudley, Lee Fogelin, Bill Haight, Shuzman Gouvernement, Dave the Hammer Schultz on that team. Wow. Bill Stewart, Ken Bradenbach, Mike Bolin, Larry Playfair, and Richie Dent. Of course, we talk about the non-goalies. 3 minutes into the game. Regular hit. Middleton says, I'm going to give a hit. Matt shoots. Ah, Cashman. Aggression. Foster. Buffalo just loose. No. And they failed. Rick Sealing fails. So 2 Kitchener Rangers fail while 1 is in the box. 5-minute chance. And a no. We can't score. No score in this game. We're 2 points out of Buffalo. They do have a game in paw. 4 minutes later. Transfer. Frick. Come on. 2 minutes later. Let's go! Stuck in the Middleton with you. His 25th from Jean Natel. 4 minutes later, a fight between Danny Gare and Jim Petty. Wait a minute, Jim Petty's a goalie. Oh, they put him in as a defenseman. Danny Gare fights. What the hell is Jim Petty doing out there? That doesn't make sense. He's the goalie. But anyway, Danny Gare, well, it kind of helps out. Yeah, it kind of helps for us because Danny Gare is a tough offensive threat. Buffalo Skills, Rene Robert roars. His 29 from Jacques Richard. 1-1. 3 minutes later. Any chance for us? No. And after 40 minutes, it's 1-1. We kind of have the advantage. 3 minutes later. Buffalo. Well, Rattel gets hacked by Fogelin. That might help us. It's alright, because I'm saved by the bell. And you'll be thinking, well, you're full of crap, Cutter. Am I? Yes, that's Bob Miller. Doing his thing. And yes, that perm looks like he is Screech from Saved by the Bell. So this is 16th, 2-1. 1 minute later. Milbury for 2. Milbury gets hit. Thankfully, Milbury gets I don't feel the pain. You know, Animal from Mudman. His 29 from Milbury Middleton makes it 3-1. Looks good. 4 minutes later. Battle aggression. Damn Schultz. They score on the power play. Ramsey is 30th from Brian Beck and Korab. 3-2. This game isn't over yet. They tie Ramsey? No. Empty nets now are up there. Buffalo Rene stop. A stop by Chabert and Rene Robert prevents Buffalo for the tie. We win 3-2. We survive. Wenzek is the hero after all. So that means with 1 game left, we're 4 points ahead of Buffalo. Buffalo does have, well, Buffalo plays the same time we play, right? Yeah. So we play the same time as Buffalo plays on the Saturday. Buffalo has to play on the Sunday, but that's a moot point. Pittsburgh has, all right. Rangers, Atlanta, this is key for the division. And the Rangers shut out Atlanta, Minnesota, Vancouver. Vancouver beats Minnesota, but Minnesota knows they're going to the playoffs. So Saturday is a full slate of games. Minnesota, LA. This game's huge for LA for the playoffs. And they beat Minnesota 3-2, and I think that's it, right? Yep, that's it. Washington's got 2 games left. They win both. They'll have 79 points. But LA will have more points. So LA denies Washington a playoff berth, despite the fact that Washington has 33 wins, LA has 29. So yeah, ties do matter. 22 ties, the same as Chicago. Washington basically finds out that LA wins the game, so they basically are so crushed they don't care, and they lose to Montreal quite easily. It's not Montreal's last game of the year, but anyway, Washington, they're definitely out of it. Philly the Islanders. Islanders won. It doesn't matter. The Islanders won the division, so they're going to the quarterfinals automatically. Detroit, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh beats Detroit. Oh no, we don't play. Oh, we play on Sunday. Chicago, St. Louis. St. Louis beats Chicago. Now comes the hard part. We need the Leafs to actually prevent Buffalo. The Leafs just need a point against Buffalo, and then that means on the final day we can rest easy. And we can't rest easy. Buffalo wins, so that means they're at 85 points. But no, we're safe. We're safe because we would have more wins than Buffalo. So Buffalo wins, they're at 34 wins. We had 36. So yeah, that works. So everything works out. Yeah, Pittsburgh just needs a point to clinch second place. Well, preliminary points. So Chicago misses a yeah. So either Chicago, I think we win because of win. I think we have more wins, so we don't have to play Buffalo. Yeah, we don't have to play our game on Sunday. It doesn't really matter. So nothing matters except for preliminary round points. But I think yeah, we just need a point. But the fact of the matter is that yeah, but Buffalo can win against Colorado and we lose, but we win 36-34. We have 36 wins. So yeah, I think the game doesn't matter. And we tied Toronto anyway, so we just go for the point to win anyway. Buffalo crushed Colorado, but we beat them by 1 point. St. Louis and Chicago tie. Montreal beats Detroit. Rangers beat the Islanders too little too late. Atlanta beats Philly, and Pittsburgh beats Washington. So, what does this mean? Well, the Islanders win the Patrick division by 2 points over the New York Rangers. Just 2 points. Philly third with 90, Atlanta 77 points. Atlanta would have clinched a Smythe division berth winning it. They would have been third in the Adams, but fourth in the Norris. Chicago 77 points wins the Smythe. Vancouver second, St. Louis third. Colorado were disastrous. In the Adams division, we beat Buffalo by 1 rinky dinky point. So, yeah, they had a good home record, but we won 14 games on the road. That mattered most. Buffalo takes second. Minnesota beats Toronto by 3 points, so that means the Leafs won't go to the playoffs. Minnesota will. Montreal, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles make the playoffs in the North. Washington and Detroit are shut down. We won 22 games at home. That is beating the fifth best. Islanders, Rangers, Philly, and Montreal had more home wins than we did. On the road, we got 14 wins. The Islanders, Rangers, and the Habs were the only 3 teams to beat us in that category. We had 14 wins on the road. Well, as did Pittsburgh, but yeah, Pittsburgh had 14 wins on the road, so that's good for them. Teams, our team. We actually started with a 7-game unbeaten streak. Yeah, we couldn't get much streaks. We did have a 4-game winning streak in February and all that, but then we lost 3 straight. We had a couple of 3-game losing streaks, which was vexing. Stats wise, Jerry Cheevers 42 games, 17, 16, and 7. Not really Cheevers like Chilbert 11, 7, and 5, and Petty 8, 5, and 4. So he played 20 games. Peter McNabb led to our team in points with 92. Sean Martell 76. Terry O'Reilly 73. San Donovan and Tom Sungen with the low end of the points. Goals, Peter McNabb 42. Sean Martell 31. Wednesday, Cashman and Middleton all had 20 goal seasons. Stan Donovan had 2. Assist-wise, O'Reilly beats up McNabb and Middleton, and Pelly Metz O'Reilly over Murray and Secord. Yeah, Jim Petty had 24 penalty minutes. He's a goalie. Highlights-wise, our best Our biggest win was against Minnesota on February 17th when we won 10-2. We were up only 3-2, but scored 7 straight goals. Our biggest loss was in Philadelphia December 9th when Scherber got his butt handed to him. I don't remember if I did that game or not. Well, how many minutes did play 40? Yeah, that's me because usually when it's simulated, goalies don't change. Most memorable game: Detroit Atlanta from January 28th. St. Louis Minnesota Stanikowski versus Milosh 7-6, and St. Louis's 8-6 win over Minnesota is the third most memorable game. Other 30-point games: Atlanta Detroit December 13th, Washington Detroit January 6th, Minnesota Washington March the 4th. Very recent game when Washington thought they had it. And the Honor St. Louis from March the 7th when the others blow a 4-1 lead. Our memorable game is 28 points, Boston, Colorado, when we were down 3-0 to Michel Place, but we won the game. So that's what happened. So, oh yeah, goal scoring, Mike Bossy with 69 goals. Nice in a sense. Marcel Dion second with 59. Guy Chouinard with 58. Lafleur did get the 50 goals. Peter McNabb was 8th with 42. Raquel was 29th with 31. Points wise, Trottier wins the match over Bossy. The others go 1-2 in points. Bossy second, Dion third, 125. Lafleur 121. Dennis Potvin got to 100 points. So 300-point scores for the others. Guy Chouinard was so close, 1 point short of 100. Bob McMillan and Clark Gillies and Anders Hedberg were 2 points short of 100 points. Dryden, Smith, and Davidson, the three best goalies. Man, Dryden's goals against was the best by a long shot. 2-1-6. Guy got into his freaking element. Yeah, it's weird how Bromley's 12-18, and yet he had a better goals against than two 20-game winners, Espel and Bouchard. So now comes the thing. Here come the playoffs. So the playoffs are that we are technically fifth, but because we won our division, we are in the quarterfinals for keepsies. So we're gonna simulate the we're gonna simulate the preliminary round before the quarterfinals. So we technically were fifth in points. Islanders, Rangers, Montreal, and Philly. But the problem is that the Rangers and Philly were in the same division as the Islanders, so that division had 3 of the top 4 point scorers. So by points, we would be fifth. Then Buffalo, Pittsburgh, LA, Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, St. Louis. So Chicago was the worst division winner, 9th place. So let's see here. So 5 non-division winners had more points than Chicago. Yet Chicago gets a bye to the quarterfinals. Only Minnesota, Vancouver, and St. Louis were worse than them. Minnesota was the only team worse than Chicago who weren't in this Spike division. All right, so Rangers take on St. Louis. By points, it's Rangers versus St. Louis, Philly versus Vancouver, Buffalo versus Minnesota, and Pittsburgh, Los Angeles. My early predictions are Rangers, Flyers, Sabres, and Kings. I'm going to go for an upset. Game 1, Rangers Blues, and St. Louis pulls it off 3-2. Phil Meyer comes in out of nowhere to beat John Davidson. Ranger goals by Hedberg and Duguay. St. Louis goals by Bob Murdoch, Brett Sutter, and Wayne Babbage on a power play. And the Blues are now 1-0. You have to win 2. Philly crushes Vancouver 7-1. Dunk Wilson losing to Bernie Perron. I think these two teams played in real life against each other in the preliminary round. They did. Philly scoring 7 goals. Harlan Graves for Vancouver, but Kelly, Barber, Kitchener, Daly, McLeish, Evans, and Bill Barber. So good old Kitchener. Bill Barber scoring twice. Pittsburgh crushes LA in defined powder 7-2. Heron beats Lazard. LA goes by Marcel Dion with both of them. Pittsburgh goes by Kehoe, Chapman, Malone again, Peter Lee, and then Russ Lonsberry, former Flyer. And Minnesota upsets Buffalo in overtime in game 1, 4-3 as Pilo Presti beats Don Edwards. Kitchener. It was a battle royal. Minnesota had 2 leads on goals by Payne and Mannery. Buffalo had goals by Luce, Kitchener, and Andre Savard. Buffalo made it 3-2. Dave the Hammer Schultz with a goal on the power play. Polish made it that way. And then after Rene Robert was in the box, JP Parise scored Make it 4-3 North Stars. Game 2 sees Philly crush Vancouver 7-2 as St. Croix beat Dunk Wilson. Is that Pitt Martin? Pitt Martin stands meal for Vancouver. Philly goes by Bridgman, McLeish, Daly, Leach, Bridgman, Hoida, and Bob Kelly. So the Flyers easily beat up on Vancouver. LA wins 7-2 to force a game 3 as Lazard took down Heron. Pittsburgh goes by Kinderchuk and Stackhouse. LA goes by Silaps Jr., former Penguin. Jensen. Can't be Danny Grant. Or is it Danny Grant? Butch Goring, who would later play in the others. Taylor, Dion, and Goring. Buffalo shut down Minnesota on the road 6-0. Randy Ireland did the job against Meloche. Derek Smith, Gare, Rick Martin, T. Martin. Who's T. Martin? Todd Martin? I don't remember T. Martin. Ramsey and then Rick Martin. Who's T. Martin for Buffalo? Oh, Terry Martin. Okay, good. Cool. And the Rangers beat St. Louis to prevent an upset, 6-4. Soltart beats Meyer. St. Louis was up 4-2. It was like the Blues are going to pull off a massive upset on the Rangers to get to the quarterfinals. That goes by Babbage, Sutter, Smirky, and Federico. It looked like game set match. Rangers that goes by McEwen and Danny John Murdoch. But then in the third period, McEwen, Espo, Gresh, and Maloney Kitchener did the job. Pittsburgh, LA in game 3 sees Pittsburgh win 4-3, so they're going to the quarterfinals. Greg Millen, RIP, beat Mario Lazard. LA goes by Dion, Goring, and Hampton. Pittsburgh goes by Petey Mahalich, Kehoe Lee, and Greg McAdam. Buffalo beat Minnesota, so they keep normalcy 6-4. Belashos and Edwards. Buffalo was up 4-0. Bolin, Luce, Kitchener, Korab, and Derek Smith. Minnesota 2 goals by Mandarin Sargent. And Danny Gare made it 5-2. Payne and Anderson made 5-4, but Tony McCagney saves the day. So normalcy could rule the day. And it does. Rangers win 6-4. So normalcy works. Danikowski losing to Wayne Thomas. RIP himself. St. Louis goals by Federico, Babbage, Hess, and Brett Sutter. Brian Sutter, excuse me. Rangers goal by Nielsen, Espo, Duguay, Gresh, Maloney, and Will Kachuk. Kitchener. I can say that for sure, certain. Yeah, I know. So normalcy has happened. In the quarterfinals, it'll be the Islanders, Chicago, Rangers, Pittsburgh. We had to face Philly, and we are the road team. Despite the fact we won the division, we had less points than Philly. And Montreal, Buffalo. Oh boy, that's gonna be huge. Islanders, Chicago. Yeah, Espo versus Billy Smith. Rangers, Pittsburgh. That's a big rivalry. Well, not in the 70s style. Philly, Boston. That's a big rivalry in the 70s. And Montreal, Buffalo. So yeah, we got home ice disadvantage against Philly. So yeah, I was hoping for an upset or two to keep our chances alive. But what can you do? Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.